Hi, everyone. I am so excited to welcome this week's guest on the podcast. Her name is Rachel. She is a fashion and style and color consultant. And you all know her from her wonderful website, Truth is Beauty. That is truth-is-beauty.com. And we are going to have a lovely discussion all about essences today. So thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I know your system is a big hit in my Facebook group and everyone resonates with your essence system. So let's start at the beginning. What was the inception of your system?
So I think probably like a lot of women who are into style analysis, I started many years ago with the question of, is there a logical way to predict what would look good on me besides just my gut or what the magazines tell me? Maybe about 16 years ago, I started digging into that question. And probably like everybody, I discovered David Kibbe and John Kitchener. And then working backward from them, I really dove deeply into it, reading Harriet McJimsey, trying to figure out, okay, what's really going on here? It made sense to me that there would be these core types.
Yeah.
And some of the types I thought, that's definitely a thing. And then others I thought, I feel like there's something missing here. For example, I think McJimsey had an ingenue, and I think David Kibbe dropped the ingenue.
Yeah.
And I felt, to me, it seemed ingenue belongs in there. It seemed unusual to me that we had natural and dramatic as mature masculine beauty on one side, but on the feminine side, we just had romantic. That was a big sticking point for me because I thought, I know a lot of women have mature feminine beauty, but I don't think romantic is all there is. And then a lot of people I discovered John Kitchener, and I said, that's it. This is the feminine corollary of dramatic, is this angelic.
Yeah.
I felt we have an earthbound masculine and feminine, which is natural and romantic, the physical, earthly masculine beauty and feminine beauty. And then we have the childlike masculine and feminine, which is gamine and ingenue. And I love the symmetry that's going on. And then we have these kind of abstracted or extreme or idealized feminine and masculine, which is how I understand ethereal and dramatic. And then classic is this balanced space in between all of the mature types of beauty. And then I thought, I like that Kibbe tried to get methodical and categorical about subtypes, but my idea was we need to do that completely. We need to make every dramatic combination, every ethereal combination, every natural combination. And after I had come up with every two essence hybrid, my best effort to define them and identify what I thought were their core traits, then I thought, what about three essence hybrids? I think those exist. Why don't I try to identify all those and elaborate all of their traits? At that point, just numerically, I thought, I feel like 63 types is about the limit of what I can extend, and maybe three essences is about the limit of what a woman can express visually. Yeah, there does come a point, I think, where you're running out of different things to say with what you're wearing.
Yeah, and it can get difficult to mesh opposing elements as well in one outfit seamlessly if you're trying to pull from opposing essences. So you started off with two, and you worked through that whole process. You got your kind of prime examples and your descriptions. So you were expanding Kibbe's idea of image identities, playing off some of what Kitchener had, but you really started to focus in on these hybrids then. Then it was all about, what do these three things all do together? So 63 was your number. Now, when you say 63, does that mean that someone has equal amounts of each essence, or just that all three essences are present?
I don't think if a woman is a two-way blend or a three-way blend that she necessarily has equal amounts. In my experience, it's rarely the case that she does. I have an analytical mind. I became determined to try to assign a mathematical value to how much of each essence a woman has. John Kitchener does this too. And it's been so long since I started on this journey. It's possible that John Kitchener inspired me to try to do that. And I don't totally remember what it was like the day that I decided I'll try to assign percentages to these. But I think for me, assigning percentages makes sense.
Yeah.
Because a woman who is 80% or 80% classic and 20% natural looks different than a woman who is 80% natural and 20% classic. Her best clothes are similar but not identical. Yeah.
And that's where you created your calculator, correct? As well.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I love that calculator.
Yeah.
It took a really long time to make. I really like spreadsheets. They just appeal to the organized analytical side of me. And I was convinced that in style analysis, like in color analysis, the ultimate decider has to be not, let me back up and say, in SciArt, in color analysis, we know that you're not a bright spring because of your eye color, or your hair color, or your skin tone. You're a bright spring because those are the colors that bring you to life and make you beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I thought the same must be true with style. It must be the case that if a woman is strongly ingenue, it's not because of her forehead or her lips or her hair. It's because ingenue clothes are the clothes that bring her to life. And you don't have to be able to point to anything. So then I started thinking, how could I create a tool that a woman could use in her own living room where she could figure out what proportion of each of these essences she has. So I made all these Pinterest boards, and I made this big spreadsheet where she enters values and scores herself, or has a friend score her, because I think sometimes friends are more objective. After fussing around with it for a long time and testing it on different famous people and on myself and on my friends, I came up with a tool that I think is pretty decent at finding what are the proportions of these different essences. So I was really happy.
I know, it's a labor of love, right? You have the vision, and it's like you have to, 63 is a lot, and you have to include all these different elements to each of the 7 essences and how they work together. I want to ask you about something you just said. You mentioned that you don't look at individual features, like you're not looking at a large forehead or big lips. So do you look at the entire face? Do you look at the body? How do you parse through it? Is it coloring? What are the elements that you find most impactful for determining, let's say, those essences?
I think, again, color analysis is a really good analogy. Before I even got into style analysis, I had bought a set of SciArt drapes. I hadn't been formally trained by Christine Skaman, but we had communicated a lot back 2009, 2010, 2011 by email. And I had gone really deeply in color analysis. I came to understand that when a woman had the right drapes, it wasn't necessarily that you could articulate what it was doing to her face. It was just apparent, the gestalt of everything, the eyes, the skin.
There's just picture comes to life. The picture comes to life. I really feel like it's like a light bulb is turned on. And it's not that other colors are terrible, but in my own journey, I had people who, when I thought I was a summer, was like, oh, this is such a beautiful color on you. And now when I wear spring, it's, whoa, I just see you in a whole new light. Like I see you differently now. There's a different energy. There's like your face looks different. It's just like the picture wasn't fully painted or finished. And with that color underneath it, it's like the right support system.
It's an emotional reaction or maybe a physical reaction in the body. I think I visited Zion National Park for the first time several years ago, and there's a famous drive into the park where you go through a tunnel, and you're not really sure what to expect. And then you come out of the tunnel, and suddenly you emerge from the darkness, and before you is the most glorious landscape you've ever seen. And just this feeling comes over your whole body, like, oh my gosh, what is this I'm beholding? And I think when you see a woman suddenly in the right colors, it's a feeling in your body. All of this is to say that when I analyze a woman and I'm trying to determine her style type, I will have a hunch, maybe. I might think to myself, those look like dramatic eyes, or I think those are romantic lips. But I resist the urge to let that hunch push me in one direction or another, because I know that when I see the right clothes, I'm going to have that same Zion National Park feeling. It's just going to suddenly, and a lot of times it's a surprise. A lot of times I look at the clothes, they're incredible, and then I check what type this is, and I think, I had no idea she had dramatic. It didn't even occur to me, but there it is in front of me. My eyes aren't lying. The physical reaction in my body isn't lying. This is beautiful for her.
Yeah. I have that same experience when I've started doing color analysis. Is like, sometimes you have a hunch and people always have thoughts. I think I'm a warm spring. And you're like, oh, yeah, let's see. Or you think in your head, maybe you could do this. But then you put that, I don't know, bright winter drape on her and you're like, oh no, this is it. It's like a megaphone, like shining, like this is what you can look like. It's amazing.
Isn't that funny? Sometimes I think, and I think this is true in color analysis too, a woman looks beautiful, but you don't know yet, is this the most beautiful she can look? So you keep going until you've tried everything. And then you have found at that point just how beautiful she can be. And sometimes it's more than you expected.
Absolutely. And I think it's complicated, though, because when people get invested in essences and they try to determine it themselves, how do you think that personal bias or style aesthetics or trends end up playing into this? Because it's hard. Sometimes people get so attached to something, like they have this idea and they're like, I want to be Angelina Jolie in this movie. And they're like, it's a different vibe on you. Can you wear it? Maybe, but it's just not going to be Angelina Jolie, who I think you have as romantic, dramatic classic?
I think she's romantic, dramatic classic, yeah. Oh, this is a tough issue because I feel so much for women who want to be one thing and a style or color analyst tells them there's something else.
Yeah.
It's not what they want to hear. But integrity is a really important idea to me. And I feel that what I owe women more than anything is my honest judgment. I try as much as I can not even to find out ahead of time what a woman hopes that I will tell her. Nonetheless, sometimes I can infer it, or sometimes she'll just come right out and say it. And I have to really discipline myself not to let myself be drawn in the direction that I know she'd like me to go in, and instead just to go in the direction that my aesthetic judgment tells me is correct. Most of the time, the reaction that women have to the answer that I give them is very positive.
Yeah.
Over the years, there have been a couple women who it just wasn't what they were hoping for. So when I first got color analyzed many years ago, I wanted to be a soft summer. And I sent off my pictures to this woman and I said, I think I'm a soft summer. And she wrote back, after much analysis, I've determined you're a soft autumn. And so I wrote to her, okay, are you sure though? Maybe you should take another look. And her response was, on second thought, I think you're a soft summer. And I was so thrilled to hear that, but I didn't believe it because I felt I had talked her into it. And then I went to another color analyst, had the same back and forth with her. I said, are you sure I'm a soft autumn? Maybe I'm a soft summer. And she said, you're not. You're not. I know you're not. And here's how I know it. And I went through about 2 days of grieving. And then... Right. And then at the end, I came out of it with an enormous respect for this woman because I had tried to nudge her toward what I wanted to hear, and she wouldn't let me do it. She told me what she believed was true, and she was right.
And that's the thing is I had this similar experience because I went to Christine Skaman to get my training, and we did my analysis as part of my training. And, I was sitting there and we were doing the drapes and we ended up with bright spring to bright winter. And like literally I thought bright spring was the last one I would ever be. And like I'm sitting there being like, please not bright spring, just anything but bright spring. Like I don't know what to do with bright spring. And she was like, no, you're bright spring. And it took me like a little while to understand how this could work with my style. And this leads me to my next question is like, how malleable do you think that style essence combinations can be? Like, is there a sexy outfit for every kind of essence blend or an intense outfit for every different hybrid?
If I were like a beauty writer for a magazine, I would write an article that said, every woman has a sexy look. Every woman has a business look. Because I know that that's what we all want to hear. That would make us really happy. To be really faithful to what I believe is true, I think that there are some very natural women who are never going to look their best in traditionally sexy clothes. And I think there are some very ingenue women who are never going to look their best in clothes you would wear to your corporate job.
Yeah.
I think this is just the truth of beauty and the truth of clothing. Having said that, it's nice to know how to cheat a little bit. I'm never going to be my most beautiful in a suit that I would wear in a boardroom. But if I need to wear a suit in a boardroom, there are ways that I could make it the best it can be for me, which would still not be my most beautiful, but would be possibly as good as I can look in that context. If I can bring in just a little ethereal natural in some of the texture or some of the color, or maybe just a single detail somewhere close to my face.
Yeah. Do you think that's people in general struggle with certain style and trends and like that kind of like hamster wheel and style transitions? Like they have a new corporate job and they just can't find anything that works for them, or they're always appearing too young in the office, and this is where the style issues come from, and maybe learning their essence blend can be that like unlocking at least the information. Like, I know why this is now not working for me.
I think, that's absolutely true. And although I think it's very difficult for us as women to do this, I think we have to try to decouple what we see as true about our own beauty from our value judgments of good and bad. For example, I want to be able to say about myself, I understand that a blazer and a tucked-in shirt and a knee-length skirt are never going to be my best, but I'm saying that to myself without feeling bad about it, without it being a judgment on me. And if I have to go work in the corporate world and that's my uniform, I'm going to radically accept that it's not going to be my most beautiful look, but I can tweak it to make it pretty good. Yeah. And I can leave the house in the morning understanding that if I were running through a field on a Saturday afternoon, I'd probably look a little more beautiful, but it's okay. Yeah. It doesn't have to be about whether I'm a beautiful human being.
Yeah, we all have those like shining outfits, and they don't work for every part of our lifestyle. Now, what would you say are those little details someone could integrate to cheat a little bit?
So depending on how flexible a person's work environment is, for example, most of us, I think today, as time has gone by and just everything everywhere has gotten more casual and laid back and less strict, I think women in almost any work environment have a lot more flexibility than they did, say, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
If she must dress in a way that she knows isn't really the best context for her beauty, if she can bring in just a little something close to the face, that can make a huge difference. For example, a woman who's strongly romantic and has to wear an ensemble that is absolutely not romantic in the least, if she could just have one pair of ornate, jeweled, beautiful, dangly chandelier earrings.
Yeah.
Even if the whole rest of it has to be shorts and a t-shirt because she works at an amusement park, who knows? I think just that, because this is where our eyes are going, or to the face. I think that's going to help her romantic beauty shine out, even if the rest of her isn't exactly what would set off her beauty most perfectly in an ideal situation.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to talk about like base pieces too, because in fashion design, we do this thing called croquis, which is we like start with one design and we take that design and we tweak it a little bit, just a little bit, each changing like one design element as we go. And we do them really fast, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're just changing things ever so slightly, but the base piece is the same thing. So I like to put that into the fashion realm too, because I think if you took, let's say, a t-shirt and jeans, but the romantic wears those chandelier earrings and a red lipstick, and then the ingenue does like a dainty ballet flat and cute headband. So it's like you're taking these pieces and you're just tweaking the overall essence of the outfit. And I think that's a really interesting way to cheat what our lifestyles need, because we would all love to, if we're natural ethereal, to be running through a forest in like a beautiful flowy gown or something, but like maybe your lifestyle doesn't incorporate that every day.
Yeah, 100%.
So I totally understand that everyone has these three main essences. Now, how do people work through, once they find out their three main, the balance in an outfit? So let's say like you can give an example of a celebrity or someone you think does this really well, or even just three essences and how you might build an outfit. I'd love to hear your kind of take on?
I will say that sometimes I find a woman who I think just has two, and on a few occasions I found a woman who I thought was a pure type. That's pretty rare, but a couple times I saw it. When I do a personal style analysis, I give women a lot of pretty detailed information. I wonder if it's more detail than every woman would want. Maybe the women who come to me are women who are really into detail like I am. And that includes information like, what would be your ideal ratio of straight lines to curving lines? What would be your ideal ratio of perfect fit to roomy fit to snug fit?
Yeah.
And I determine this based on what percentage of each essence I believe they have. And I think each of those aspects, so like fit and line length and line shape, size, structure versus lack of structure, is maybe a different lens through which to view your ensemble when you're looking in the mirror in the morning.
Yeah.
So for myself, for example, I'm about an equal balance of natural and ethereal. And so natural is going to call for natural fabrics, which probably everybody in your audience could name because I know they're very versed in all this stuff. Like things that are rough or natural, like leather and raw edged hems and stuff like that. And then ethereal is going to call for things that are more light and floaty and delicate. Ideally, I would have a roughly equal balance.
Yeah.
But if I see that my ensemble is leaning really strongly, let's say ethereal in my fabrics, then I want to balance that by having it lean more strongly natural in maybe my palette. In order to maintain a roughly equal balance, if I have like head to toe ethereal fabric, I might try to do a really earth tone palette to get this sort of 50-50%. And I give women in my reports very specific advice about you should have most of your outfit, for example, be roomy, and then maybe just a little bit fit you properly. And if a lot of it is fitting you properly, you should bring in more of a certain type of detail or a certain type of fabric in order to bring back, let's say, the dramatic or the natural that you need to bring in to achieve the balance that works for you.
So are we always shooting for individual pieces to have both? Let's say in your case, you're looking for a shirt that has a natural touch and an ethereal touch, or is it sometimes you go for an ethereal top with a natural bottom?
I think both of them work. I think both of those are good ways to approach it. It may be, and I talk about both of these with my clients, that one approach, which is really easy, so to use myself as an example, is to find something on the rack that is both ethereal and natural. That's easy peasy. And then I can fill my whole wardrobe up with pieces that are part ethereal and part natural. But I can also have a bunch of separates that are almost totally ethereal or almost totally natural and pair them together in different combinations. And that's another way to go. I think depending on the style type, for example, if a woman is dramatic gamine ingenue, which is a really unusual style type, those are some weird combinations to have together.
Yeah.
It would be hard to find a lot of individual pieces or accessories that combined all three of those.
Yeah.
So in that woman's case, she's probably going to want to have individual dramatic items, individual gamine items, individual ingenue items, and
it's going to be a little bit more mix and match to understand, okay, I went too dramatic here, or the outfit rhythm was off, or the balance points are just getting confused. That makes sense that if you can fill your closet with natural angelic mixed in, you already have the easy answer. This works for both of my essences, so it's going to work. But the dramatic gamine ingenue, they probably have a little bit more exploration to do once they get that blend.
Yeah, and this goes back for me to the desire to make people happy and wanting to give women an answer that's easy for them to work with versus wanting them to give the answer that I think is correct.
Yeah.
When I discover a woman is, for example, dramatic ingenue, there's a little voice in me that's like, all right, I'm going to have to tell her this isn't an easy one. It's an extremely special beauty. It's a rare beauty. I think it's an honor to have that kind of beauty. But it's going to be harder to shop for than, say, natural classic. There's no way around it. I just invite women to lean into it and embrace it and enjoy the fact that their beauty is so unusual, even though it's probably going to take more work to create that look.
But sometimes that's good. I know, like, when I got my Bright Spring, I was terrified of it. And Christine was like, this is common. People either love it or hate it. But once I sat with it, once I worked through it, once I saw the vision, it was still scary, but much more doable. And I saw the transformation that could happen. So I'm sure the same is true with the essences. When you get something that seems like, how am I going to build an outfit for this? You get a lot of introspection time to understand how you connect with these pieces. How do you like to imbue that ingenue? How do you like dramatic to show up? And with time, it's a really gratifying process, I can imagine, because you see yourself in this new light. You're like, I get it now. I see who I'm meant to be, right?
Yeah. And then hopefully going out in the world and getting the reactions from the people around you who suddenly say, my gosh, you look incredible today. Yeah, hopefully that positive feedback just starts happening. And then when they look in the mirror, getting that feeling, that's what you hope happened. But it can be difficult for women to take those first steps. And then on the other hand, there are a lot of women who say, I sensed it, I felt it, I had a hunch, and you confirmed it, which is easy.
But so I know you offer style analysis packages, and I definitely want to talk about that. But basically, you give people a guidebook of all the elements that they need to consider and interpret. But at the end of the day, two people could have the same essence blend, correct? But still get different suggestions or their own personalized iteration that also involves them being like, I like ingenue to be this. I resonate with this side of the ingenue and not that side.
Yeah. So two women with the same style type and really similar percentages, I'll still give each of those women 40 or 50 photos of outfits that, to use dramatic ingenue again as an example, that aren't DGI clothes. They're clothes just for this woman. And it could be a dress that I also thought was beautiful for another woman. And it could be a dress that I've never thought was beautiful for anybody before this woman came into my life. And hopefully the women can use the portfolio pictures that I send them as their really individualized inspiration for their precise beauty, even if their percentages are really close to another woman that I came across 2 years before. And, and we also make our own decisions. We make our own compromises with our daily life and our own decisions about, well, how much of my style type am I going to manifest on any given day? There's an evolution I think a lot of us go through where we start out being lost and then we're searching for the answers. And then we feel that we found the answers. And then there's this period of trying so faithfully to live according to those answers. And I think that even beyond that, sometimes you get to a point where you give yourself permission to break the rules just because it makes you happy.
Definitely. I try to look at it like these are all tools, not rules. And essentially with like essence and color, we're like, I like to think of it as like we're building like a platform, a pillar to support us. And you get to step onto the pillar and be in the spotlight. And all of these tools help support you to be in the spotlight and be your truest self. And you may lean one way in one lifestyle event. You may lean another way in another lifestyle event. But ultimately, it's about making you shine. And we need to get in touch with the journey process of this. Because I think a lot of people think that once they get like an essence blend or a color analysis or even a style analysis, they're like, okay, it's all figured out. I got the answer. It's done. But the next steps are where you actually bring this to life. Like, you've got the recipe now. You can follow it. But, where you go from here, what you add, what you take out, those are all personal tastes. So let's talk a little bit about your analysis package and how you guide people from that kind of like messy middle or unsure of my essence blend, really having that strong foundation in style.
Women for whom I do a personal analysis, it's a process that I think is probably unusual compared to a lot of analysts. I'm not sure if this is still the case, but I think I read a few years ago that David Kibbe, for example, will spend maybe a whole weekend with a woman and go shopping with her and take her into lots of different stores. And that's an experience that sounds amazing, and I think a lot of women would want. I want to give a woman the most accurate feedback I can on her beauty without being influenced by she thinks she is and how she holds herself out in the world. So I want pictures. I want 10, 20, 50, 100 pictures.
Wow.
But I don't want to see a video of her. I don't want to hear her voice. I don't want to see her posture or watch how she moves. I don't want any of that, because I think once I have a hunch about what kind of person she is, this is going to nudge me in a direction that maybe isn't toward the truth of her visual beauty. It's going to nudge me toward something else. And I want my answer to be 100% accurate for what she looks like. And when I'm able to give that to her, that may transform how she presents herself in the world, how she carries herself, and how she walks and how she talks. Or it might just be an unusual addition to all of those things. There are plenty of analysts who are helping women express not just what they look like, but also what they feel like inside. And I think that's totally a legit thing for women to want and go after. But it's not my mission. I want to find what I think is the truth of a woman's physical self, and then she can take that information and do with it what she will. So I spend like about 50, sometimes like more like 20 hours over the course of 7 days.
Wow.
Just looking and looking, just like hundreds of different photos and outfits and details next to all different versions of this face, waiting to have that Zion National Park feeling where I see it working. And then once I get the feeling that it's working, then I start chasing that. Oh, I feel like detail is working. What kind of detail? How about this kind of detail? How about that kind of detail? And then slowly I can narrow in. After usually about 4 or 5 hours in, I think I have the answer. And then I start looking for clothes. But then sometimes when I'm looking for clothes, I get the feeling it's not working, and then I have to rewind and reconsider.
So it's a very analytical, slow brewing process where you're trying certain details and you're seeing, is this the hybrid that works? No, I have to remove this one.
Yeah.
I know in color analysis, sometimes when we're doing the draping, we get to a point where people are like, but you said you didn't like any of these colors. And I was like, but there was something within that color properties, those color characteristics, that was right. You aren't a bright spring, but you do have that medium value. Let's try a different medium value. So it's like you pull things until all the levers work.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and I'm making notes to myself the whole time. Don't really love this, but something is working. Or I like it, but it feels too mature. Or I like the youthfulness of this, but it feels a little unconstructed. And with those notes and my thinking and going back over things I looked at before and trying new combinations, I feel like I slowly am able to narrow in on what is the truth of this woman's beauty.
I love the name is just so great. Truth is, it's wonderful. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit. We've talked a lot about verbiage lately. I want to start off by talking about terms like mature and youthful and how that affects in terms of like your age and maybe how that affects like your perception of yourself. Because for me, when I was like 17, I was very mature looking for my age, but I'm 20 years later and I still look like the same. I'm not trying to say I look like 17-year-old, but I have it. My features look very similar. So what I once thought of myself as mature looking, I now think of myself as youthful. So is there an age range that you recommend people assess things, or that it might change with time, or it might be misleading at a certain age?
Question. I don't think I've looked at enough women like 10, 20, 30 years apart, looked at a woman in her 30s and then looked at her 10 years later to be able to give a confident answer about how much these things do change over time. I think looking at celebrities, that I think we all do, I think it can change a little. I'm not sure it changes a lot. When you look at a celebrity, the first thing that comes into my mind, even though it's a guy, is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
When he was young, we could see he had a boyish handsomeness. And now he's older than me, and he still has boyish handsomeness. He can still wear a bow tie. He still has that sort of impish, mischievous quality. So it could be, if I analyzed a woman 20 years apart, it could be that her percentages would change a little, but I would be surprised if her overall style type changed.
Now, what if they had a mature and a youthful essence combined? Would that
The
kind of
balance might, yeah, maybe the balance would change a little.
or maybe that one is just being more pronounced because of the clothes, too.
I'm thinking about my own children. I'm thinking about my daughter actually right now because she's interested in this stuff. She's a young teenager and she asked me, Mommy, what do you think I am?
Yeah, you have to give her the full package.
I think, and I have thought for a while, that she has both a lot of gamine and a lot of ingenue. But I also suspect that some of that is because she's a child.
Yeah.
And that when she's 35 or 40, she maybe is going to have less of that. I don't know if it's going to go away altogether, but I think maybe as she grows into her adult woman face, the part of her that's gamine and ingenue is going to draw back a little. And I suspect the rest of her is natural. I'm not positive, but that's my hunch. And maybe her natural is going to emerge more.
So do you suggest there's like a certain age where people, because I know McJimsey threw out like, at 25 is a good age for you to hone in, and that you could maybe mistake yourself for one of those youthful essences if you do it before 25. I know it's not a hard rule. Is there an age where just proceed with caution?
Yeah, I would be reluctant to take the money of any woman who wanted to analyze me who was, say, under 20.
Okay.
I would be concerned that maybe 15 years later, she's going to lose some roundness in her face or some fullness in her lips that are things that might have been signaling a certain essence to me. And that what I had initially told her may not be as true anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. Now, I know a lot of younger people have been drawn to analysis and essences. And I think that it's really interesting because I think as a society, we get so much stimuli with social media and so much access to trends, and trends move so quickly that it becomes even more apparent to them that, hey, this trend really doesn't work for me and I need to know why. Do you think that in a certain way, even if the essence isn't 100% correct for, let's say, your daughter, that finding that beauty of where she stands now can still help her kind of see herself in a version of truth, what's true for her at a young age?
Yeah, and maybe just, in the case of my daughter, maybe just accustom her to the idea that what is going to be beautiful for her isn't the same as what is going to be beautiful for other girls.
Yeah.
That's a conversation we have a lot. I think any mom of a daughter probably has had this conversation. Mom, does this look good on me? And the conversation I've had with my daughter a lot is, I know this is really popular right now, but I don't super duper think it works for you. Or I know a lot of girls aren't wearing this, but I think for you it really brings your beauty to life.
Yeah.
My hope for her is that as she enters adulthood, that she will be used to that way of thinking, that there are things that are cool or popular that aren't necessarily the things that make her shine. Yeah. And that there are things that'll make her shine that won't necessarily be what everybody else is wearing.
It's an individualization. It's like an internalization. It's an ownership. You get to decide, I know this is popular, but I can also see that this doesn't make me feel my best. So I'm okay with leaving it on the shelf. And I'm going to hold something that I feel ownership of, I feel beautiful in, and I feel connected to in a way that's more grounded and more real than just chasing every trend, which I know is difficult nowadays. There's so many trends. It's hard to keep up.
I think it's hard for women too. Looking at my daughter and her friends makes me think about and remember what it was like to be an adolescent and how very much we wanted to look like the other girls. That need was so deep. And I think as women, it maybe takes us a long time to find the courage to start to dress for our own beauty instead of dressing for what the magazines tell us the other women are wearing.
Yeah,
I think
empowering.
It is. To be able to get away from that.
And I think sometimes people discount, like, we put so much emphasis on youth in our, like, culture. But I think, like, when I hit my 30s, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I finally see myself in a much happier light. Like, I feel good in the clothes I wear. Like, I don't feel like I need to pretend to be someone or keep up with someone. So there's a freedom in kind of being like, I can say no to this. Like, I don't have to follow the biggest trends. And I think that's like what essences just allow you to see yourself in a new light. They shine your beauty in a new way, and you can appreciate it. And you can say, I get why I don't look like Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie doesn't look like me either. And I can rock this puff sleeve frilly dress like no other ingenue could, or whatever it is.
That's the part of style analysis that I get a little emotional about, honestly, because I can remember being a young girl and wondering if I was pretty, if I didn't look like other girls. And I think probably almost every woman on earth has had that fear as well. And the idea that every one of us could figure out what the truth is of our own beauty and have it be something separate from having to look like other people. I think there's something really just beautiful and fantastic about women being able to find the truth of beauty for themselves.
Yeah.
Separate from what society tells them is beautiful.
It's honestly honoring yourself and honoring your place in the world. Because if you copy so-and-so's outfit and their look and buy everything that they wear and you wear it in the exact same way, in essence, you're losing a little bit of yourself. And we're all such individual, beautiful people. We deserve to take up our own space. We deserve to let ourselves shine. And our style is a great way to do that. And I just love the Essence system for that. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about verbiage, because you've used a lot of terms. I know that it's popular to talk about like mature and youthful, and most people know what that means. Now, you prefer to use masculine and feminine. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. That was a decision I made many years ago, because I could see that a lot of style analysts said yin and yang, or some people say yang. I always just said yang.
I've said both. And I seem to get criticized each way I say it.
I know, right? So I'm just going to pick one and stick with it.
I know. Oops.
To me, I guess I'm a person who, if I feel like I'm saying something other than what I really mean, it makes me uncomfortable. And in my head, I was translating yin and yang as feminine and masculine. And I thought to myself, if that's what I mean, why aren't I just saying that? And I suspected that analysts wanted to say yang instead of masculine because they didn't want to say to a woman, you have masculine beauty.
Yeah.
Because the feeling is, what woman would want to hear that? And I thought, if this is true, though, if we are going to say that we have a dimension and there are two poles, and one of them, let's be honest, is a feminine pole and one is a masculine pole, let's just say it and destigmatize it and celebrate it. Let's say, yes, some women have masculine beauty, and that's okay. That's fantastic, because this is the beauty that supermodels have and goddesses have. This is the beauty that is striking and unusual and makes people stop and stare.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we all want to be very, maybe not all of us, but I think a lot of us feel that we need to look and be very feminine. And I thought, we don't all have feminine beauty. I have a lot of natural. And I felt like the best way I can help women embrace the masculine aspects of their beauty is to start by just radically accepting it and calling it exactly what it is. That was my feeling about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Most of the original texts do use masculine and feminine. I think that where it's gotten like confusing for people is these topics have taken off, right? Like they are all over. I don't know about you, but like the past 5, 6, 7 years, it's like style systems has just blown up and everyone is looking for the answer. And what happened is there was like a descent of opinions about, well, being masculine as a female is bad. If you're, a natural or you're flamboyant natural and you have masculine energy, then you're not going to be seen as beautiful to the opposite sex. And I think that's where it's become very triggering for people, is that they want to be considered a beautiful, sexy woman, and they don't like being compared to a masculine. So and it creates type resistance, because they're like, I don't want to be natural romantic. I want to be something more yin, something more feminine.
That's a great way to say it, type resistance. I love that.
And I think that's where everyone started to get, whoa, pump the brakes, because you can be beautiful as this blend. Look at this amazing supermodel. Look at someone like Julia Roberts. I don't know how you've typed her, but someone that has
she has that really like horsey natural beauty, 100%.
Yeah. And she's stunning and she looks amazing in practically anything. She looks effortless. And I think that that's where that kind of leaning onto these words became such a prevalent thing for people, because it made people resist what they were. And I think that maybe having an analyst like you walk them through it and show them that being striking doesn't mean that you wouldn't be considered beautiful in today's standards. It just means this is a new type of beauty. This is your beauty and you should own it. And everyone's beauty is unique to them. Do you feel like you have to walk people through some of those terms or?
Yeah, I feel a little trepidation still about if I'm bringing to a woman, you have a mostly masculine beauty, you're mostly natural and gamine, and then maybe a little bit of ingenue. I feel like I need to do a little bit of explaining.
Yeah.
I try to just trust that if I'm straightforward and I give her the truth, that she's going to respect that. But I do often add a little explanation. For example, a woman like me who has a lot of natural, if I put too much feminine detail around my face, the effect is I look more mannish. And having less feminine detail actually results in me looking more feminine. This is one way I can present it to women that I hope helps them be more comfortable with if they have a strongly masculine beauty, is the feminine quality of your beauty shines forth more strongly when you give it the appropriately masculine context. So if you give it the minimalism or the straight lines, that's what actually allows the feminine parts of your beauty to really stand out. Like with a gamine woman, for example, I think I read once that Winona Ryder, who's an archetypal, strongly gamine woman, I think I read once that as a child, she was constantly mistaken for a boy. When you put a gamine woman in a boyish context, suddenly what jumps out is all of the sweetness of her beauty. Whereas if you put her in a very feminine context, she does start to look a little boyish. The irony of having these masculine beauties is, in a masculine context, the feminine parts of us, I think, shine more strongly.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes at the end of the day, some of these words we use we all assign meaning to them. But at the end of the day, what we have to realize is how they work on our own figures. What is our truth to our beauty? Is it straight lines? Is it dainty details? And what is that hybrid of your essence blend that makes all these unique words come together? So someone with strong gamine essence or gamine essence, however you would like to pronounce it.
That's another one that there's like never agreement on.
I know. They're both French words, so we just got to pick one, but I didn't in that moment. So now I regret it. Okay, gamine. I'm going to go with gamine. Someone with gamine essence, maybe it's that it's short lines and cropped silhouettes for perky details, whatever it is. It's not about saying you're this or that. It's combining all of these elements to really hone in on your individual line, your individual beauty. Because as you said, someone with the same essence blend, you're creating a package for them, two people, that are customized to exactly their uniqueness. And I think that's wonderful. What is your advice to someone who is on a style essence journey?
So my first recommendation to a woman is never actually get a personal style analysis from me. I think for a lot of women, that's a big expense. I believe it's an investment that pays off, but I think the simplest, easiest way to start is with the Style ID calculator.
Yeah.
And to do it with a friend, not by themselves. Right?
We should ask our kids, honestly. They're the most honest. My son, even before I was a Bright Spring, I walked out once in this like Bright Spring green dress with a puff sleeve and emperor waist. And he was like, wow. And I was like, oh, maybe do it with your kids. They're the ones who are brutally honest.
I have a teenage son and he's fantastic for that. He'll walk past my room and look at it and go, you look like a man. And I'm like, they're like, oh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that because I was not seeing it. Thank you for the feedback. I think with a really honest friend, maybe a sister or a friend that you know is going to tell you the truth, to sit there with you and watch your face next to all these clothes and try to notice what really lights up the beauty. And similar to how in color analysis you can flip back and forth quickly between two drapes and suddenly the difference between them becomes really apparent. Flipping back and forth quickly between, say, a very romantic ingenue ruffly collar versus a deep, severe, plunging, dramatic neckline just back and forth super quick, it often becomes very easy to see which one is better.
Yeah.
There's just this feeling in your chest of lightness and ease with one of them, and the other gives you a feeling of tension and dis-ease.
Yeah.
And I think slowly going through the pictures and narrowing it down, you can start to circle in on what you think is right for you.
And I think when you start there too, you start with something and then you test it out and put it in practice and see, is this coming to life the way I thought it was? And you really have to have that exploration phase where you're like, okay, I think I'm TGI. What does that look like? Maybe I'm playing around with it. And maybe you go back and redo it at some point too, where you're like, okay, D and G working fantastic, but I isn't quite right. It's what you do in your analysis, just without your trained eye, of course. Probably a little bit more of a messy middle.
I think when we're analyzing ourselves also, I can't overstate how important it is to use photos and not a mirror. I don't know why this is true, but when we see ourselves in the mirror, there's something we're not seeing. I made a mistake the other day that later I was just like shaking my head. I bought this skirt that I loved it. It was a gorgeous, like rough, natural leather. It was a beautiful brown for my soft autumn, and I was thrilled about it. Now, it was an A-line skirt. It hit a little below the knee. Neither of those things is really great for me, and I knew that. But I put it on, and I looked in the mirror, and I thought, you know what? I think this is working. I don't know why, but it is, and I'm going to wear it.
Yeah.
And I wore it to an event, and later I saw a photo of myself, and I was like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you know I want it to work.
Yeah.
But I had to see the picture for it to really be obvious to me.
Oh, yeah. I tell everyone, take daily outfit photos because all of a sudden you see it in a new light. The one thing I love about style is it's low stakes. You try an outfit, it doesn't work. The next day, it's fine. But then you have that data to be like, you know what? I think that those earrings were too much. They're drawing focus. Let me try it, croquis method, with smaller earrings. Let me try it with different shoes. And let me see if I can take the base of what I felt was a good outfit and tweak it. And we all have such emotional attachments to clothes, too. So we have to slowly walk ourselves from, okay, I thought I was natural. Now I'm finding out I don't have any natural. How am I going to get rid of my super woolly sweaters and heavy leather pieces and switch those out to something more playful or more whatever it is? It's a process. Now, how should people who are exploring essences treat shopping and wardrobe building? People want to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. And I'm like, please don't. Please don't.
Oh, yeah. I remember very early in my journey in like 2000, and I dropped a lot of money on dramatic separates because I thought probably I have a lot of dramatic, and it turned out I was wrong. And it was a mistake, whatever, it's a learning experience. But if women are comfortable doing it, I really think thrift stores are a good idea. I really do. Very low stakes. That skirt that I bought, I got it at the thrift store. I think I paid $10 for it. So I'm going to rehome it, and I'm not going to feel too bad about that.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
It's treasure hunting, too. You never know what you're going to find, and then you just see it, and you're like, oh, my God, I couldn't even have dreamed this up, but this is perfect.
Or women can use websites like Poshmark or ThredUp or eBay if they want the same kind of thrift store experience, but they don't actually want to go dig through a whole rack of clothes. I think that's a great place to start. Also accessories, and especially things that are right by your face. Like a very romantic scarf is a low stakes thing to invest in if you want to experiment with, do I really have a lot of romantic or not?
Yeah. And that's what I tell people about color too. Choose one color within your palette. There must be one color you're naturally drawn to in this palette. Choose that. Just focus on integrating that one color. In one top that you regularly wear, everything else can stay the same. There's no like massive wardrobe closet purge. Go slowly. And all of a sudden, you're just going to see yourself slowly reaching for that one piece a little bit more often. Or you're going to start seeing how you shine in those cropped pieces or straighter lines. And you slowly learn about yourself. And you can then go out into the world and actually buy things a lot easier, too. Because you're like, I understand this. I get it.
You used the word data a minute ago, and I thought that is exactly the right word. I think part of the journey really needs to be women making an effort to hold on to the part of themselves that is discriminating and making judgments, but remove from the judgment the feeling that things are good or bad morally. Taking positive or negative, pretty or ugly, and try to, as much as they can, look at themselves dispassionately and be open to whatever.
New data.
Yeah, be open to new data. Follow the data where they lead you. Be a scientist about it.
Yeah.
And commit to not having it be a kind of indictment of you or a personal judgment of you if you end up having an essence that you didn't initially think that you wanted to have.
It's finding your own beauty. Like you put it beautifully in the title of your website, Truth is Beauty, because it's yours. And it's really about understanding that it's okay to be your beauty and it's okay to present that to the world. And there's incredible power in that authenticity. But that authenticity also doesn't come overnight. Any big transition you have in life, seeing yourself in a new way can be scary, can be empowering, can be like both in one day. You start the day being like, I love this outfit, and you end the day being like, that wasn't right. It's a learning process. So you got to collect that data. You got to start parsing through it and understand that it's a journey. I'm sure when you started off, did you think your essence one was naturally angelic, or did you have a couple phases?
I think like a lot of women, this would have been like 2009 or 2010 maybe. I got a lot of feedback from other women online. A lot of the women were really convinced that I had a lot of dramatic. And I was swayed by that. I wasn't convinced by it, but I thought it was probably correct. And I was surprised to discover I was analyzed myself by John Kitchener more than 10 years ago. And when he said, you don't have any dramatic, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't expect natural, but it took me, like with the color palette, it took me a day or two to shift my thinking about myself to accept this idea of ethereal natural instead of maybe ethereal dramatic or romantic dramatic that a lot of women had thought I was. But once I shifted it, I thought, yeah, I can see it. And then once I tried it and saw photos of myself and saw the reaction that I got from other people, I knew this is correct. This is my beauty.
Yeah. And there's just like a wonderful feeling of seeing yourself in that new light. So it's like everyone has surprise, even if it's an amazing result or the result they didn't want. You come to see yourself in such new light. So we're going to make sure that everyone has all of your wonderful packages and links to your website in the show notes. Is there any advice you would like to give people about personal style and just words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would say that I think I touched on this before. I think we talked about it a little. You said it beautifully. You said tools, not rules. The approach that I have to beauty, the idea that you want to surround yourself with a context that's harmonious with what you already look like, that's one aesthetic. And it doesn't be the only aesthetic. Maybe a woman wants to create like a goth look. Maybe that's her deal. In order to create that, you have to defy your color and style because it's supposed to look shocking and unusual, right? I think women, when they get deep into color and style analysis, can almost become tyrannized in their own heads by the journey.
The answer.
Yeah. And I just urge women to hold all the possibilities lightly and also to maintain a little perspective. When you find your answer, it's going to feel great and it's going to feel fun. But also, you can break the rules sometimes and everything's still going to be okay. You don't have to perfectly manifest what your stylist said you're supposed to be wearing every single day of your life.
That's wonderful advice. I think that we get so into a style system as the answer that we forget that we're the painters of these portraits. Like we get to...
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
We get to put our own touch on it. Everyone draws the same still life, but you're still imbuing yourself and your art deserves to hang up on that wall. Sorry, I couldn't run with 50 analogies at one point.
No,
but
that's okay. You said it beautifully.
I just want to thank you again for coming on. It was an honor to talk to you, and I just adore your hybrids, and I know everyone in the Facebook group loves them as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Okay, guys, until next time.